Let's study basic terminologies to understand the body. First one is superior, which means upper part of a structure or towards the head. Example is heart is superior to liver. Here you can see the superior parts are superior. Second one is inferior, that is caudal, towards lower part of a structure or towards feet or away from the head. For example, stomach is inferior to lungs, that is stomach is below lungs. You can see this is the below part, that is inferior part. Next comes third one is anterior, which means ventral, front of a body towards belly or towards the front. For example, sternum is anterior to heart. Next comes is fourth one is dorsal or posterior, which means towards the back or back of the body. For example, esophagus is posterior to trachea, that is esophagus is behind the trachea. Next comes fifth one is medial, which is also mesial, which means towards the median plane or nearer to the midline of the body or a structure. For example, ulna is on the medial side of the forearm. Next comes sixth one is lateral, which means farther from the midline of the body or a structure, or we can say that away from the median plane. For example, radius is on the lateral side of forearm. We can observe in this the frontal part is anterior or ventral and the back part is posterior or dorsal. And these all I have discussed in my previous video. Let's recap. This is the anterior part, that is front part of the body, and the posterior part, that is back of the body, that is behind the body, and transverse plane, that is which divides the body into two, upper part and lower part. Next comes is that is sagittal plane, which divides the body into right half and left half. This is sagittal plane. The above part is superior and the lower part is inferior. The line which are away from the midline are lateral, and this plane is coronal plane, which means it divides the body into posterior and anterior. This part caudal, which also means inferior. Let's study the seventh one, that is intermediate, between two structures. For example, ring finger is intermediate between little and middle finger. Next comes eighth one is ipsilateral, that is on the same side of the body. For example, gallbladder and ascending colon of the large intestine are ipsilateral to each other. Next comes ninth one is quadrilateral, which means on the opposite side of the body. For example, ascending colon and descending colon of the large intestine. Next one, tenth one is proximal, which means near to the point of origin or near to the attachment of a limb to the trunk. For example, humerus is proximal to the radius. Next, 11th one is distal, which means farther from the attachment of a limb to the trunk or else away from the trunk. For example, phalanges are distal to the carpals. Let's see the diagrams. This is the proximal part. This is also proximal part. This is distal part. This is also distal part. You can see here, this is lateral, that is away from the midline, and medial, that is towards the midplane. Next, 12th one is superficial, which means towards the surface or else on the surface of the body. For example, muscles of the thoracic wall are superficial to the origin in its thoracic cavity. Next one is 13th one, that is deep, which means inner to the surface or away from the surface of the body. For example, ribs are deep in the skin of a chest. Next one is supine, which means in the position of the body lying on the back. And 15th one is prone, position is lying face downward. Next one is 16th one is internal, which means interior or inner. 17th one is external, exterior or outer. Next, 18th one is radial, which means the outer border in the upper limb. Ulnar, the inner border in the upper limb. These two are bones of upper limb. Next comes, that is 20th, tibial, which means inner border in the lower limb. And 21st is fibular, which means outer border in the lower limb. These both are also limbs of lower limbs, bones of lower limb. Next comes 22, that is palmar, which means anterior. Another one is dorsal, which means posterior. In describing the hand, the terms palmar and dorsal surface are used in the place of anterior or posterior. Next one is 23rd, that is plantar, which is lower or sole, same. Dorsal means upper. In describing foot of the body, the terms plantar and dorsal surface are used instead of lower and upper surface. You can see here unilateral, bilateral, ipsilateral, quadrilateral, the 4 types of laterality. Unilateral, this is unilateral, one side, on one side. Bilateral means 2 sides. Ipsilateral means on same side. Contralateral, which means opposite side of the body.